What's going on, everybody? Welcome into HQ Spotlight on CBS Sports Network. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino. Thanks so much for joining us. The NFL preseason is rolling right along. And if we're talking about the NFC South, all eyes are on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As Baker Mayfield and the crew, they try to capture the division for a fifth straight season. So we'll see if they can do it. We're hearing great things coming out of the preseason, coming out of camp, about their first-round pick and wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. Also in that receiver room is a guy that we know, future Hall of Famer Mike Evans, who was on the cusp of breaking that 1,000-yard receiving record. The Bucs, by the way, they open up the regular season against their division rival in the Falcons. But in terms of the preseason, we're getting a look at those Week 1 results. The Panthers with a loss, the Falcons with a loss, the Saints with a loss. The only team that came out of Week 1 of the preseason. Yes, I know it's the preseason, so we shouldn't, overreact or anything, but the Bucs getting a win against the Titans, and some news there. Their running back, Rachaad White, considered day-to-day as he's dealing with a groin injury. So we are going to focus in on the NFC South here, and for that, let's welcome in Ryan Wilson and Mike Renner. Guys, we were talking about issues to address for every team in the division, starting with the Bucs, as mentioned, trying to win the division yet again. A fifth straight year they're trying to do that. But, Mike, what needs to be addressed for Tampa Bay? What are some of the issues that you have with this team?
This offensive line looks like, because we already know Tristan Wirfs is not going to be starting the season at left tackle. That's going to be probably Charlie Heck, who's probably the most experienced backup they have, but he's experienced at right tackle. 1,455 career snaps, all but 80 of those came on the right side. And in those 80 that he played on the left side last year, he allowed 8 pressures on 72 pass blocking snaps. It was not pretty. So if that's your backup left tackle early on this season with Tristan Wirfs gone, you really can't afford to have another guy go down, because you look at the depth there along this offensive line. Guys like Elijah Klein, Jake Major, Sua Opeta, Luke Hager, these are inexperienced players. These are not high draft picks. A lot of UDFAs on that list. So if they're forced into action, it could get really ugly really quickly. They need to stay healthy up front.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. Charlie Heck is who I was interested in watching in preseason Week 1, and Jacqueline, you touched on it. The preseason, at the end of the day, you don't get all the answers to what you're looking for, but you maybe figure out little things. And as Mike noted, Charlie Heck is a right tackle primarily, played 10 snaps on the left side. Maybe if they play the Titans every single week for 17 weeks, he will be an all-pro, because those 10 reps look pretty easy for him, both pass blocking and run blocking. Can't read too much in it, but it's a step in the right direction until Tristan Wirfs gets back. But Mike's larger point, and that point holds for all the 31 other teams as well. If your offensive line is struggling to stay healthy, you have bigger issues, no matter if you have Pro Bowlers and Hall of Famers at every other position. So great first start for Charlie Heck in a game that he saw 10 reps, but we'll see what the rest of the preseason looks like, and more importantly, the first month or so of the season before Tristan gets back.
Yeah, it feels like it always comes back to that offensive line, right? As mentioned, the Bucs opening up their season against the Falcons. So let's go to Atlanta, where the quarterback situation was very interesting as it was all unfolding, right? It now appears to be Michael Penix's team. They haven't been to the playoffs in a minute. So, Ryan, if that needs to change, what are some issues that they need to address?
One of the things you can do to help a young quarterback, or an old quarterback, if it happens to be Kirk Cousins, is let the defense ball out. And I give the front office and coaching staff a lot of credit in Atlanta for addressing those needs with 4 of their 5 picks, I believe, off the top of my head. The first 2, of course, were the edge rushers taken in the first round. And those guys got after it. Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. in that preseason Week 1 game. You can see the juice that James Pierce plays with as a pass rusher. Maybe he needs to get a little bit stronger against the run. But again, you can't draw large conclusions from Week 1 of the preseason other than seeing the obvious athleticism and quicks with which he plays. And Jalen Walker, a little shorter, a little stouter, just as explosive. And they are doing what they need to do to not only help the offense, of course, but to help a defense that had 31 sacks last year, which ranked 31st. So they have a lot of room for improvement. These 2 guys are going to go a long way in helping that. And they're fun to watch in preseason Week 1. So that's a good start.
That's exactly where I'm watching, Ryan. It is those 2 rookie first-round edges, because as you mentioned, they stunk last year rushing the passer. 3rd worst pass rushing grade, according to PFF, of any team in the NFL. That has to change, especially in that division, especially when you have to dethrone a team like the Bucs, who have this great offensive line when healthy. So it's those guys. Can they make that impact while not being liabilities in the running game? Because they're both under 250-pound edge rushers. They are not your classic set the edge, hard-nosed type of run defenders. They are pass rush first guys. So can you get by with those guys on the edge and not have it ruin your run defense? Because last year, their best pass rush was Caden Ellis. Their best pass rush was an off-ball linebacker, who obviously that's a great weapon to have, but if that's your best guy, that's a problem.
All right, let's go to the Carolina Panthers, because it's also been a minute since they've been to the playoffs, and there are still some Bryce Young doubters out there. But we can't forget, towards the end of last season, things were starting to click for him, and both of you guys have some questions about the receiver room. We're excited to see Bryce Young and T-Mac and that connection. So, Michael, come to you first. What questions do you have when it comes to the wide receivers out there in Carolina?
Yeah, it's just, can Tetairoa McMillan be a number one from day one? Can he be the guy that Bryce Young trusts? It's 3rd and 7. You see man coverage. You're looking his way every single time. Can you be that guy? Because last year they didn't have that guy. And trust is a two-way street. It's hard to play with anticipation. It's hard to trust your wide receivers when they're not good. And last year they flat out were not good. So if you don't trust your guys to get open, it's hard to, throw balls that take trust. So with Bryce Young, you saw it in the first preseason game. You saw with that one that Tetairoa McMillan dropped in the end zone, the anticipation, the saying, I know he's going to be where I think he's going to be, and I know he's going to win his route. If he has that with T-Mac early on, you'll see the Bryce Young you saw at Alabama.
Jacqueline, I feel like we need to have Pete Prisco on every time we talk about Bryce Young, just so he can eat crow because of the way he treated that young man. And his quarterback, who I will not name, is not playing this season. So let's just leave it at that. But I think Mike's exactly right about what you need from Tet McMillan. Had a 30-yard reception down the field in that preseason game that looked a lot like what he did at Arizona in terms of taking what looked like what could be considered a 5-yard handoff and making it look incredibly easy because he's so much bigger and taller than everyone else. But he did have a couple of drops as well. And maybe he won't be wide receiver 1 in year 1, but maybe he'll be wide receiver 1.5, and Xavier Legette can pick up the slack. He needs to get better as a route runner. We talked about all those things through his rookie season, but I love the idea of Adam Thielen finally having help. He looks to be a better slot receiver than he was when he was the go-to guy. Hunter Renfrow is a fantastic story, as is Jalen Coker. This might be a situation in 2 or 3 months where we're like, this is one of the best wide receiving rooms in the league, at least in the NFC, and that's a crazy notion given how much Bryce was asked to do with so little in year 1. But as you mentioned, Jacqueline, the last month and a half of year 2 looked a lot like the Bryce we saw in Alabama, and I think he continues to take that step with these wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm also excited for the content coming out of the receiver room. If Xavier Legette is any sort of inclination as to what we're going to see down the line with them sitting on the glass during hockey games, I'm pumped for it, gentlemen. All right, finally, let's go to the Saints because it's Kellen Moore's team now. Also, just an interesting quarterback situation because Derek Carr retires, right? We're thinking Spencer Rattler is QB1, and then Tyler Shuck kind of comes out and outplays him in the preseason. So a lot of things certainly need to be addressed here. But, Ryan, is the quarterback situation the glaringly obvious issue that needs to be addressed first?
Yeah, of course. And there are other needs, especially on offense. And I'll be interested to hear what Mike thinks about this because he and I both like Spencer Rattler last season coming out. I think I did at least, thought he was more than a 5th-round pick. And Mike liked Tyler Shuck a little better than I did. I didn't understand it. But I'll give Tyler this. He played pretty well as the backup quarterback in week 1. Again, not a lot of pressure. We saw his ability to throw the ball down the field. We saw his athleticism to stay in the pocket, so on and so forth. But I didn't think Spencer played terribly. I went back and watched earlier after hearing some reports that he struggled a little bit. We saw the arm strength from him as well. But there's no clear-cut guy you can point to and say, hey, this guy's going to solve our quarterback problem. So we need to figure this out over the next couple of weeks. And hopefully one of these guys are able to differentiate themselves because without a quarterback, even in this division, the Saints are going to struggle, and we'll continue to have those conversations about are they going to take Arch Manning 250 days from now.
Yeah, they're the only team in the NFL that's drafted a quarterback in 3 straight drafts. And I think it's going to be 4 straight drafts. I was just going to say, I just don't think this quarterback room is good enough. From what I saw in the preseason from Tyler Shuck, it was semi-encouraging, but not enough to make me think that, the pre-draft eval I had on him, which had him as like a back of the top 100 type of player, is enough to just all of a sudden boost him in the starting role. I had a higher grade on Spencer Rattler coming out. I think he's the one. And it's not only this quarterback room, it's does this offensive line improve enough to even let them be good? Because last year, when they had to drop back and pass, Derek Carr didn't have a chance. Like, they had to run all day long to even be able to protect Derek Carr with play action to give him enough time. When he didn't, that's how he gets hurt. So I think that's the two biggest questions: is the quarterback room, but then also can the offensive line even give them enough time to make this quarterback room look good?
Hey, and if they are going to be drafting a quarterback, Archie Manning is saying, hey, do not tank for Arch because he's going to be back at Texas. Ryan, Mike, we appreciate it. Hang tight. More to come. But in the meantime, let's look at the NFC South and the upcoming preseason games that we have to look forward to. One on Friday with the Falcons as they take on the Titans. And then we have the Panthers, the Bucs, and the Saints all in action on Sunday.